With more and more celebrities, business leaders and entrepreneurs revealing ADHD diagnoses recently, I'd like to think the days of believing that it's impossible to be ADHD and successful are long behind us. But in case that's not the case, then here is a video all about what makes ADHD adults successful. Hello and welcome to Through the Noise Coaching. My name is Ali and I'm a leadership coach specialised in growing the careers of mid to senior neurospices, and this topic has been on my list for a while. This video is based on a paper called Positive Aspects of Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder, a qualitative investigation of successful adults with ADHD, which looks at the common traits of successful ADHDers to bring out some of that positive side about ADHD. There are some limitations, as the paper was only a very small sample size. It was actually only 6 adult males. But they counter this by saying that they wanted to explore actual lived experience and go deep instead of a surface level conversation. And they point to other papers that actually agree on a lot of these points as well. The interviews themselves were conversational, but they ended with 3 important questions. These were: what do you think of the advantages and disadvantages of having ADHD? Please describe a time when you felt that your ADHD helped you achieve something. What aspects of your ADHD would you miss if it went away? The paper grouped the results into 6 themes with 19 sub-themes. But some of the sub-themes are a little bit arbitrary, and they used Freud to argue one of them, which is a bit, I don't know. I've reinterpreted it and I'm going to give you 15 positive traits instead. So let's take it away. Trait number 1 is divergent thinking. That's the ability to think creatively outside the box and come up with ways of solving problems that others just might not have thought of. It's something that's considered a measure of creativity, and from my own experience, it's something that my clients actually exhibit. They're able to come up with ideas that others wouldn't have thought about. And yeah, sometimes they're a little bit left of field, but often they're ingenious ways of solving problems that others just wouldn't have occurred to. This paper refers to divergent thinking as cognitive dynamism, or as you and I know it, this restless spinning brain that just never stops. But it's part of this restless spinning brain, and through the chaos that these ideas tend to emerge. Topic number 2 is hyperfocus, which is something that's always a little bit interesting in these conversations, because often there's quite a misunderstanding of it among neurotypicals, because they consider hyperfocus to be something that we can just choose to hyperfocus on our work and then we'll be the most productive employees ever, completely neglecting the fact that we can't choose to go into hyperfocus or what we hyperfocus on. It also comes in the side effect that sometimes we forget to eat, or like my comments often remind me, forget to go to the toilet as well. However, for the participants of this study, hyperfocus was seen as a real asset when harnessed for productivity. They described it as a state of flow, and the paper references another study which says, the focus work rate that hyperfocus produces enables creative genius to grow. And in fact, this creativity is a bit of a recurring theme here, and it's actually present in topic number 3, which is curiosity. Curiosity was one that I didn't actually relate to at first, because after 4 years of studying maths and then 7 years working in a career about maths, I was very burnt out and no longer curious on this topic. However, that's looking at it very one-dimensional, because at the same time I was always researching my special interests and hyperfixations and absorbing the knowledge that I had there. I'm always the person that asks questions at the opticians about how these things work, what they're testing for in a particular scenario, or any kind of similar environment like that I'm in where I get the opportunity to ask questions. This is something the participants agreed with, saying it was a positive aspect of their ADHD. The paper describes curiosity as being inquisitive, of being open to new experiences and having a desire to learn. And I think it's pretty clear that with all the knowledge we accumulate through all the different hyperfixations we have, that learning is something that is a recurring feature of our lives. Trait number 4 is a strong sense of justice, something that is very common among neurodivergents, and I think links to traits number 5 and 6 as well, of being non-conformity and bravery. Participants grew up knowing they were different. They knew that they didn't fit in, but this wasn't a bad thing. The non-conformity allowed them to stay true to themselves. They were able to advocate it as not a negative pathological thing. Their sense of justice also meant they were able to push back against the negative stereotyping that put them in boxes and told them what they were and weren't allowed to be. Disclosing their ADHD made them feel authentic and honest, and that they had integrity. Of course, in order to be a non-conformist and advocate for what you believe in, then you have to have bravery. I mean, it takes a lot of bravery to be open about your ADHD, knowing that there's negative stereotypes around laziness, around success, around substance use. It takes a lot of bravery to stand up there and advocate for yourself and for ADHD in general as being not the bad thing that society and stereotypes believe it is. Bravery was extended to cover topic 7, and that is thrill-seeking and adventurousness. Often spontaneity and thrill-seeking is linked to the impulsive side of ADHD and seen as a negative thing. But actually, here's something that one of the participants had to say. The participant said that an action was judged as either impulsive or spontaneous depending on how other people reacted to it. If the reaction of others was negative, then the action or behaviour was viewed as impulsive, but when the reaction was positive, then the action was described as spontaneous or intuitive. And in fact, when it came to their brave and adventurous undertakings, one of the participants said this: "I've done a lot in my life and achieved a lot and experienced a lot. I would see a lot of that as being quite positive, and a lot of that is ADHD drive. It's something I find relatable too. Going with that drive of ADHD to take on new and exciting challenges that others just wouldn't means that you have a lot of interesting life experience that others just wouldn't." Coming in at number 8 is spirit, which could be seen as spirituality, but actually it also could be seen as meaning or purpose or just being connected. And all the participants described feeling connected to something that's bigger than themselves. Number 9, this paper talks about something they call the psychological energy of will, which you could maybe phrase as willpower, but actually reading this, I actually picked up a little bit more on ADHD's stubbornness, and the participants, some of them referred to it as the drive of ADHD. Here's something they had to say. "I think ADHD got me through my corporate career, but it nearly cost me my mental health completely. Having said that, without that drive, I would never have been that successful. I don't think I would have been as good a salesman as I became, and I don't think I would have been able to go back to my career once I had a breakdown and actually go on to be even more successful." Which makes you think of last video's concept of hitting the wall and then building back again. Just because you hit the wall because you had your burnout or whatever it is, doesn't mean you can't build back more successful again. That ADHD drive doesn't go away and can bring you to new heights than before. On a similar theme is trait number 10, and that was the sheer amount of energy they had. All of the participants spoke of high energy levels and how this worked to their advantage. It made them feel younger than many of their peers and meant that they got into a whole range of activities, including lots of sports which are generally pretty physically beneficial as well. I also find that ADHD energy is infectious, but this is just one of my observations, not the paper. Coming in at number 11 is one of my personally favourite aspects of ADHD, and that's actually our amazing sense of humour. In fact, one of the brilliant quotes from that paper said that when asked what they would miss if their ADHD suddenly went away, all participants mentioned their sense of humour. And I think that's absolutely beautiful, because with so many hard parts of ADHD and so much stigma and all of that, the fact that the humour is something that they missed is that's just amazing. The ability to see the funny side is so beautiful. The next 3, however, come as a big surprise to me because they contradict stuff that is often seen as a negative aspect of ADHD, or, maybe put a bit of a positive spin on it. So let's get into them. Starting with number 12, having a positive mental attitude. Now this one surprised me a little bit because often I get a little bit frustrated with the ADHD community because of the level of negativity that's there. And I find that the negativity can often hold us back and stop us from moving forward with things. But in this paper, a positive mental attitude was present in all the participants, and it was something that actually improved their well-being. It meant they had less stress and they coped with things a lot better than people with a negative mental attitude. They also are a lot more extroverted than people with a negative mental attitude. And this is really interesting because some of the things, like I alluded to earlier, how hyperfocus is something that we can't control. But our attitude is something that we can control. The attitude you bring to life is determined by you. So by making that positive mindset shift, then you could be setting yourself up for a significant improvement in your well-being over time. Sticking with the controversial, the participants mentioned being able to strike up social conversations with relative ease and having a really high social intelligence, something that actually contradicts the DSM-5, which says that we struggle with social scenarios. In fact, one of the participants actually attributed some of his sales skills to that. Here's a quote. "I didn't know that ADHD has made great salesmen, by the way. You probably know that's another good career for an ADHD person, and my son is a brilliant salesman." And I can see this side of things. I know ADHDers are amazingly charismatic. They're fantastic at just meeting new people and winning them over instantly and making friends just like that. But I also see another side of this, because I know that some people with ADHD really struggle with, say, a sales role because of rejection sensitivity, and hearing those no's and getting that rejection can be incredibly hard. which just goes to show how much everyone's ADHD presents differently and how we can have two very different experiences of the same diagnosis. But the trait that surprised me the most that it was seen as a positive is number 14, and you're not going to believe me what I say it is, but I'm going to follow it up with a quote that comes from a person talking about it. It's actually emotional dysregulation. Here's the quote. "The emotional roller coaster, the highs and the lows make you feel alive. This is an intense experience emotionally, whether it's part of ADHD, but I think it is. They say mood fluctuations are a negative aspect, but when you enjoy something or when you're excited about something, you think all the enthusiasm and the energy, would I feel this if I didn't have ADHD? Would I have felt so much pleasure about the good news I just heard?" And this reframing is just beautiful and a demonstration of that positive mental attitude that I mentioned earlier. And I do see the point, because I've said so many times that I would not trade in my hyperfixations for anything because they are some of the most joyful experiences of my life. And so I can see that. I can see my excitement, my passion, my energy, all those good parts of ADHD. Yeah, maybe they do come from my emotional dysregulation. And maybe those highs that I feel at a new hyperfixation and a new thing to be excited about are worth the lows that they're counteracted with. And that brings us to our final positive trait, resilience. The ability to keep going when things are hard. The ability to move through this world as someone with ADHD in a world that is not ADHD friendly all the time, and find a way to keep going, because what is the alternative? Giving up? So that's it. 15 traits of ADHD that having them a beauty that I, even as someone who is ADHD neutral and therefore spends a lot of time looking into the positive side of ADHD, hadn't even stopped to appreciate in its entirety. And what I love about this paper is that it acknowledges that ADHD is hard. It's not looking to be toxic positivity. It knows that ADHD has a hard part. But we can know these two things. We can know that ADHD has a hard part and that it has a good part as well. The paper says, too often people with lived experience hear about ADHD in relation to deficits, functional impairments and associations with substance misuse, criminality or other disadvantages on almost every level of life, school, work, relationships. This is a study that reaches out to people with lived experience of ADHD, service users, patients, family members, carers, partners, to say that not all symptoms of ADHD are maleficent. Recovery, high functionality and flourishing with ADHD are possible. So off you go into this world. I want to see you out there and I want to see you flourishing. And if you're not sure yet how you're going to flourish or what strength you can use to bring that into the world, you might be interested in going back and watching my previous video on your unique strength. Please like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for your attention today and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.